So I wanted to come on today and talk about these HD link cables from Pound. They've been out for a while, and I've kind of had my eye on them, but never got around to picking them up, and then decided, you know what, there are some games on the PlayStation, original Xbox I want to revisit. So I gave it a go, and also decided to pick up the Sega Saturn cable. And read some reviews online, looked at some videos online, and it seems like these are sort of talked down as something that, they're incredibly cheap and they're the bottom of the barrel entry point into getting your retro consoles up on a modern HD TV. And I think that is a little unfair. I was pleasantly surprised by the features and by the quality of these cables. And I just want to give you a little bit more information, talk about some aspects of them that I think are discussed, underrepresented in the reviews that are out there, and give you a couple of use cases for how they could be useful in your retro setup. So let me show you exactly how it is that I use them. Basically, put the console on the floor here, and just run one HDMI cable into the auxiliary port, or auxiliary HDMI port here in the front of the receiver, and things work out really, really well. Alright, so let's talk about the image quality on these cables. Start off with the Xbox cable. It is pretty no frills. It needs USB power if you have a later model Xbox, as I do. The image quality was on the soft side, definitely had some aliasing, but I would say my overall takeaway was the original Xbox plus the Pound cable is a lot better than emulating on the 360 in the sense that gameplay is a lot smoother, obviously, on running on original hardware. So while the image was soft, I think it was perfectly playable. It was very fun to play ESPN, NFL 2K5 on the original console, and of course that's the best version of it, and just an example of games that at one point you could run on the 360 but just didn't play as well. So I think from that perspective, Xbox Pound cable is very, very good. So let's talk about the PS2 cable. This is a little bit more interesting of a proposition. On PS2 games, it had the same soft, somewhat jagged image quality as the original Xbox cable, but it was quite a bit sharper on PS1 games. PS1 games looked rather good playing through this Pound cable. And you can power it from the PS2 USB ports. I did run into some hiccups when games would try to switch display modes to progressive scan, I believe. As when they did this, the screen would go blank. I encountered this on a couple of the King of Fighters games, but, if you just told it to, not put the game in progressive mode, it worked fine. And, again, it's better than what you would get with composite. It's easy to plug into the HD TV, and it looked good enough to play. And once you kind of got into it, you got over the soft image quality. And lastly, the Saturn Pound cable was perhaps the most surprising. This was a significant visual upgrade for me over plugging this into a DVD recorder with an S-video jack on the front. That, in comparison to the Pound cable, just was really blurry, forced into 16:9. Pound cable was crisp, clear, 4:3 image with minimal input lag on the games that I tested, 2D fighters, 3D fighters, shoot 'em up games. I mean, the input lag is there if you're super sensitive to it, but everything was, for me, completely playable. You do need to power it from a USB outlet, probably on or near your TV. I just, as you saw, plugged it in right into the TV, and it worked fine. Colors pop. I kind of like this. I'm not going to say it's oversaturated for my taste. In other words, the colors don't bleed into each other, but it might be a bit vibrant for people who complain about oversaturation. But it was pretty impressive to the extent that a lot of cutscenes, some of the Japanese Saturn games with anime cutscenes, looked incredibly sharp, and it was really a surprising performance from this cable. So one aspect of these pound cables that I think is really not discussed at all in some of the other reviews that I saw was that in the pound cable's ability to allow you to reaccess and rediscover some of your retro gaming library, it also creates a nice little avenue to add in other peripherals to kind of extend the experience. So I was getting back into my PS2 library and realized, I have a lot of fighters. It'd be great to get an arcade stick. And I realized I didn't need an arcade stick if I picked up this guy here, which is the Pound Super Cable or Super Converter, I think they call it, which allows you to plug in any PS3 and PS4 arcade stick. So now I'm using the old Vulix Taito stick, which I sort of prop up here on some speakers. It's a little bit more comfortable to use as I sit here on the ground in front of my television. Run that into the Super Converter, into the PlayStation 2, through the pound cable, and into the receiver. And now I'm rediscovering really all of my fighting games using a super high quality arcade stick that really wasn't available. Well, certainly anything of this quality, even though they had real arcade pros and things like that for the PlayStation 2, nothing of this quality was available for that console. And that is all because I rediscovered PlayStation 2 with the pound cable. So I'm not going to lie and say that these cables equal the experience that you can get on a CRT TV, on a PVM, on a FrameMeister. Certainly that's not what these are competing against, but they do offer some benefits that I think go beyond just pure image quality. First of all, obviously, the price is very reasonable, $30 a piece, and I'm sure that comes with a pretty hefty markup. Again, they're kind of cheap feeling, but they, as I said, get the job done. Secondly, they allow you a convenience that even if you have a CRT or any of those higher end products, it's a pain in the neck to drag the CRT up to the room or store it in the game room. It's a pain in the neck to wire everything up. Here, if you use it as I do with the receiver, you're basically just pulling the system out of the closet, plugging it into the receiver, plugging it into the wall, and you're good to go. Beyond that, I think what I was most surprised with was the improved sound quality on all of these cables, but specifically the Sega Saturn. The Sega Saturn sounds absolutely incredible through the HDMI, and I guess because it's corrected that pin issue with the aftermarket as video cables where you'd have to swap the white and red plugs, all of that is gone. It sounds powerful, it sounds forceful, and the same also goes for the PlayStation 2 and the Xbox. So I didn't know that. I didn't think that I would be getting such a sound upgrade. And then lastly, because of the ease, it does open up your library. It makes it less cumbersome to reaccess and go back into the stacks of games, in my case for these three systems, and discover games or rediscover games that you haven't played in a long time. I think that's the benefit. It declutters the game room, but it still lets you experience the bulk of your collection in an easy way. And that is something that I greatly appreciated.